Hello everyone, and thanks for the opportunity of show our work entitled Design of a Real-Time PCR Targeting EF1 Alpha TF1 Gene for Trichomonas fetus identification on preputial bull samples. This work is part of a research project funded by the Community of Madrid, Spain, for the performance of industrial PhD, in which the Bisabet Center from Complutense University of Madrid and Maeva and Zootecnia companies participate. According to the World Organization for Animal Health, OIE, Trichomonas fetus is a flagellate piriform protozoan parasite of approximately 8 to 18 micrometers long and 4 to 9 micrometers wide, with 3 anterior and 1 posterior flagella. The organisms move with a jerky and rolling motion. Infections by T. fetus have been described in pigs, cats, and cattle. In cattle, T. fetus infects the reproductive tract. However, the bovine gastrointestinal tract hosts a number of other commensal trichomonas that may contaminate samples and may be difficult to distinguish from T. fetus by culture and morphology. In cows, T. fetus infections cause embryonic and early fetal death, fetal maceration, pyometra, cervicitis, endometritis, delayed return to estrus, and infertility. However, males are usually asymptomatic. Those infected bulls may go unnoticed during long periods of time, transmitting the infection through natural breeding and seminal doses since T. fetus is able to survive to cryopreservation. In addition, bovine trichomonosis is translated onto economic losses for farmers. Due to its relevance in production, in some countries, bovine trichomonosis is a notifiable disease. So the diagnosis of T. fetus in bulls becomes a key point for its control within herds and for avoid economical losses. Due to the advantage of PCR, it is the most widely used technique by diagnostic laboratories for the detection of T. fetus in preputial bull samples. Most PCR protocols target on the genomic region that comprises the 18S, 5.8S, and 28S ribosomal RNA genes, and the internal transcribed spacer 1 and 2, the ITS region, that is a multicopy target. However, this genomic region seems to be highly similar in phylogenetically close species, which may lead false positive. In this context, alternative PCR targets to confirm positive cases are an interesting tool. Regarding alternative PCR targets, the information published is scarce and incomplete. For that reason, this work addressed the design of a new PCR real-time based on EF1 alpha TF1 gene, which has demonstrated a high specificity and sensitivity in LAMP technique, and is compared with a suitable PCR real-time with specific proof for the identification of T. fetus in preputial bull samples, according to OIE. The design of in-house PCR, called V21, was carried out by Oligo7 software on this reference sequence from GenBank, the same sequence used for the design of the LAMP. The specificity of primers and proof was verified in silico by BLAST from the NCBI. All downstream assays were performed in parallel with previous validated protocol called M06, used as standard PCR in our work. The analytical specificity and sensitivity was carried out using the Guide for Development and Optimization of Nucleic Acid Detection Assays from OIE. Also, the confidence interval of the limit of detection was calculated. On the other hand, the diagnostic performance of in-house protocol V21 were performance on pre-crucial samples from 200 breeding bulls from extensive herds. Those samples consist in DNA extractions by column systems using KIAM DNA minikit of QIAGEN. With the results, we were calculate the positive predictive value, the negative predictive value, and the Cohen's kappa coefficient. In this table, it shows the sequence of primers and proofs, and the PCR conditions. The PCR conditions for our reference PCR were those indicated by the work of Macmillan and Lewis adapted to the specification of the PCR kit used. Both protocols, the reference M06 and the in-house PCR V21, have an internal control for check the absence of PCR inhibitions. In our specificity assay, both PCR were positive only for T fetus. Also, the specificity of EF1 alpha 1 was tested by the study where the lamp was designed. However, for the proper validation of V21 protocol, more species phylogenetically close to T fetus should be introduced in the assay. On the other hand, the sensitivity assay saw a less sensitivity for EF1 alpha 1 target, being able to identify 5.75 genome copies of T fetus. Meanwhile, reference PCR is able to identify less than 1 genome copy. The difference may is due to EF1 alpha 1 seems to be a single copy gene. V21 saw a good concordance with reference PCR in our diagnostic performance assay. The Cohen's kappa coefficient was 0.95, and positive and negative predictive value were 1 and 0.975 respectively. In addition, non-specific amplification have not been noticed. So the conclusion is that PCR protocol V21 designed on EF1 alpha 1 could be a useful tool that provides an alternative molecular target for confirmed and clear results regard to the identification of T fetus in percussion samples. The specificity assay with V21 PCR protocol do not show non-specific amplifications, with the species included in our assay being positive only for T fetus. Regard to the diagnostic performance assay, V21 saw a good concordance with reference PCR. And to conclude, regarding the sensitivity of the assay, V21 PCR protocol was able to identify 5.75 genome copies of T fetus per reaction. Finally, I want to thank all those who have made this work possible, especially to the Microbial Identification and Characterization Unit from Elizabeth Center. Thank you for your attention.